not allowed to celebrate Christmas because you're a plumber. I stopped paying my sister's law school tuition. I'm better off without her now that she's pleading with me. Alright, so I've been putting off writing this story for a while because I'm not sure how to start describing this catastrophe. I guess I should start by introducing myself. I am 32 years old, single, and the owner of my own plumbing company. Yes, I'm aware that it's not the most glamorous position, based on the opinions of some individuals, including my relatives. However, I must admit that I enjoy my work and earn a lot of money. Fixing problems and helping people, even if it sometimes means putting up with their literalism, has a certain satisfying quality. LOL, I have been paying for my 26-year-old sister, Amanda, to attend law school. Yes, you did read that right. Since the beginning, I have been covering her entire tuition. A popular physician at the nearby hospital was her lover, an actual work of art. But we will get to him later. So this is where things went awry. About a week before Christmas, I received this call from my mother. Now you have to realize something about my mother. She never calls just to speak or check on me. It's always because she wants something, or there's a family issue that needs to be resolved, usually involving money, to be honest. However, this call was different. She begins with a strange, hesitant tone, as if she is about to tell you that your dog has died. Then she lays the bombshell on me. I'm not invited to Christmas this year just like that. There is no notice, discussion, or anything. At first, I assumed I misheard her, as if she had said they were altering the date or something. But nah. She continues by saying that since they want to keep everyone comfortable, it might be best if I skip this one. As I sit here, I wonder what the real one is, because this is so surprising. Christmas has always been a time we spend together, even though I was putting in a lot of overtime to launch my company. Yes, my family has always had strange opinions about my work. God forbid they tell anyone what their brother and son do for a living, even though they like the money I earn. I questioned her about it and wanted to know the true reason. She started to haw and hew, discussing everyone's comfort and professional appearance in circles, but she wouldn't answer me directly. My cousin Sarah didn't tell me the real reason until later that day. Earlier that week, she had heard Amanda talking about it with our mother. My lovely sister apparently told our parents that I would be awkward to have for Christmas because I didn't fit in with her and her boyfriend's professional status. Give that a minute to sink in. Since I'm only a plumber, my own sister, whom I've been helping with law school, felt embarrassed to have me over for Christmas. Her fancy doctor partner's reaction to having to sit at the same table as someone who made their living by working with their hands worried her. The more I considered it, the more it made sense. For example, even though I was paying for her to attend all of Amanda's law school events, she never invited me, or she would always change the topic when her friends inquired about her brother's occupation, or she never introduced me to her boyfriend, even though they had been dating for almost a year. What was the worst part, do you know? My parents concurred with her. They genuinely thought it was acceptable to keep their own son out of the Christmas festivities, since his job would cause discomfort for their cherished daughter's boyfriend. The same son who has supported the family since he was 18. The same son who started his own prosperous business. The same son who, without protest, has been funding their golden child's legal education. Using phrases like, "Well, honey, you know how these professional circles are." My mother attempted to sugarcoat it. And what does that even mean to the boss when you've advanced in your career next year? I run my own company. I work honestly. I have employees, and I make 6 figures. I don't wear a suit and tie to work, so it seems like it hasn't evolved enough. I pondered this information all day long, becoming more and more agitated. Not in a heated, irate way, but rather with a cool, collected awareness that my family, especially my sister, had been taking advantage of me and feeling ashamed of me all along. I decided it was enough at that point. My money would be too embarrassing to spend on law school if I couldn't bring it to Christmas dinner. What would my sister's fancy boyfriend think if he found out that a gas-passing plumber paid for her law degree? But wait, this is just the start, the actual. The decision to act was the first step toward what I had to demonstrate. Furthermore, karma is a terrible thing, particularly in light of the associated burden of student loans. I was therefore in a peculiar frame of mind after finding out that I was not allowed to celebrate Christmas because my blue-collar job would offend my sister's boyfriend's sensitive sensibilities. Do you know how it feels to be so furious that you unexpectedly find yourself feeling oddly at ease? I was at that location. I read through old texts and conversations with Amanda and Holly all night long. Gentlemen, there were signs everywhere. I was just too stupid or too blind to see them. For instance, she celebrated finishing her first year of law school with a graduation party last spring. Even though I had paid for the full year, I never got an invitation. She told me it was a small matter in her study group when I confronted her about it. Facebook later told me it was a big party at a fancy restaurant in the downtown area. Next came the moment she needed a new laptop for class. Even though I know a lot about computers, she asked me to just move the funds to her account instead of going with her to make the selection. It's practically a requirement these days. Even in the plumbing industry, job bids and appointment scheduling are done via tablets and specialized software. She said that she was too busy to go shopping together, but now I'm quite sure she didn't want to be seen with her plumber brother in the Apple store. In retrospect, it's kind of humorous in a depressing way. For instance, she would text her embarrassing blue-collar brother whenever she needed money, which was frequently. But when it came to acknowledging my presence in her fancy new life, the radio is silent. I decided to dig the benefits of having a cousin who is still on the family group chat. LOL. Amanda had been preparing for the Christmas exclusion for weeks. She told our parents that her boyfriend Craig, yes, his name is Craig, was from a very prestigious family, and she was concerned about making a good impression. Apparently, having a plumber sibling may harm her professional prospects, or some elitist ass like that. Want to know the true kicker? My cousin Sarah, bless her messy, drama-loving heart forward, added me screenshots of Amanda's remarks from the family chat. She had actually written, and I'm quoting this god directly, "I just don't want Craig to think our family isn't, educated. It could affect how his family sees me, and they have so many connections in the legal world. Educated. Educated." I wanted to respond and inform her that the reason she's getting an education is because her uneducated plumber brother pays $43,000 per year in school. But I held back. I was beginning to formulate a strategy, and sometimes you have to play the long game. As I thought about it, I realized it wasn't only about Christmas. This was about years of my family, particularly Amanda, treating me as a filthy little secret. They were pleased to accept my dirty plumber money, but God forbid they acknowledge how I earned it. This is an interesting plumbing fact that most people are unaware of. We must do a lot of studying. Years of apprenticeship license exams and continuing education to stay up to date with new laws and technologies are two examples. Amanda probably spent less time studying tort law than I did researching construction codes and water systems. However, they treat me like a fool who would never succeed in the real professional world because I work with my hands. In actuality, I chose plumbing because I saw a need and I am good at it. After high school, I started working as an apprentice and gained as much knowledge as I could. I got my licenses and eventually started my own business. I have 3 cars on the road right now, more work than I can manage, and 2 full-time employees. However, I continue to be the awkward brother who fixes toilets in the eyes of my family. I couldn't stop thinking about all the times I worked extra hours or arrived late to work in order to pay Amanda's tuition. My family always came first, so I put off buying new things for myself or making larger contributions to my retirement account. In the meantime, she was making a concerted effort to hide my presence from her new lover and his family. My cousin then threw another bomb at me. Such things didn't seem to worry Craig's family too much. Their family home was constructed by his uncle, a prosperous contractor. Because that's how she sees me, Amanda had just assumed they would despise me. For a few days, I sat with all of this information, keeping an eye on the family group chat through Sarah. Weeks ago, they had taken me out of it, supposedly to ease the awkwardness of the Christmas preparations. Amanda kept talking about how happy she was to have Craig over for Christmas dinner, how his family had connections at all the big law firms in the city, and how she might be able to get a summer job through his connections. All the time, nobody defended me, neither my parents nor any other family members. No one said, "Hey, perhaps we shouldn't leave out the guy who has been helping Amanda with her schooling." The fact that Amanda was able to secure a prestigious internship through her boyfriend's family made everyone very happy. I knew exactly what I had to do at that point. I would assist them in making the falsehood that they didn't have a plumber in the family a reality if they so desired. Amanda's tuition payments come first. I therefore decided it was time to take action after thinking about all of this bullshit for a few days. Here's the problem, though. I had no desire to write an angry text or anything. This is, incidentally, my family's favorite pastime, and I wanted to do it so they couldn't misrepresent what I said or make me appear evil. I held off until I was aware that Amanda's next tuition payment was approaching. She was always very anxious around this time, and it was due in about 2 weeks. Ordinarily, she would begin to make subtle suggestions about remembering the payment deadline, such as, "Oh, the school has been sending reminder emails. How about now?" There is silence on the radio. She must have thought the money would just fall into her lap, as it always did, even after I was denied the opportunity to attend Christmas. As a side note, I had been using the institution's online portal to pay my tuition directly. Since Amanda regarded me as her personal ATM, it was very convenient that she gave me all of the login credentials, which she had set up herself when she first started. Correct. In any case, when I accessed the portal, I saw that I would be receiving $21,500 for the spring semester. At that point, I became aware of the amount of money I had been contributing to her education while she was making a concerted effort to hide my presence from her boyfriend. Are you aware of the number of toilets that must be fixed in order to make that much money? Answer far more questions than most people think. So I called Amanda. I didn't text her. I wanted to hear her voice when I broke the news to her, so I called. When she heard the third ring, she sounded irate, as though I were interfering with something important. "Hey," she said in a shouting tone. "Hurry up. I'm somewhat caught up in something. I apologize." I answered, trying to sound casual. "I just had a quick question regarding your tuition. Isn't it due soon?" Her tone abruptly changed. All of a sudden, she became charming and curious. "Yes, indeed. Thanks for remembering. The deadline is the 15th. Are you still able to cover it?" "Well," I said, "what you told Mom and Dad about Christmas has been on my mind, regarding how you might look foolish in front of Craig and his family if you have a brother who is a plumber." On her end, there was absolute silence. Her attempt to figure out how to spin this was so loud that you could almost hear her brain short-circuiting. "It's not. Who said that to you?" After a while, she cried out, "Is it important?" "Well," I asked, "is it true?" More quiet. She then tried to switch to damage control mode. "You don't understand. Listen. Craig's relatives, they have very specific tastes in these matters. He has a judge for a father. His mother is listed on numerous charitable boards. I simply believed that you would be better off pretending that your brother doesn't exist. He's just a menial plumber. so I finished for her. It's unfair. She grumbled. I didn't say that. I simply... If I want to pursue a career in law, I need them to believe in me. You are aware of how these circles function. I couldn't contain my laughter. To be honest, I have no idea how these circles operate. Remember, I'm just a plumber. But what do you know? I am aware of the precise sum I have already paid for your law school. Do you want me to explain it to you? She started to speak, but I kept moving forward. $43,000 was spent on the first year. Year 2. In addition to all other expenses, the first semester cost $21,005. You had to have your laptop, your study software, and your textbooks. Based on my calculations. So far, that amounts to about $770,000. Your embarrassing plumber brother paid for it all. Why are you behaving this way? She groaned. You are aware of the significance of this for my future. Having a plumber brother would destroy Craig's family's connections at all the best companies. Even though the only reason you're in law school is because of that plumber brother, I still asked. You said you would help me, she said. You promised to help me achieve my goals. That's when I said it. Yes, I did. When you proudly referred to me as your brother. However, I suppose my money should be too embarrassing to pay for your tuition if I'm too ashamed to eat Christmas dinner. You all... She let out a screech that sounded like someone stepping on a pterodactyl's tail. That is not possible, she yelled. 2 weeks from now, the payment is due. How should I proceed? I'm not sure. In response, I felt oddly at ease. Ask Craig, perhaps. His high-paying job as a doctor would probably pay for it. Or are you only willing to accept money from my shady plumber? She started crying, sobbing dramatically. Please, she inquired. I'll admit my mistake to Mom and Dad. You are welcome to attend Christmas. Don't do this to me, please. No, I said. I have no desire to attend Christmas. I don't want to make you look foolish in front of Craig's family. Actually, I no longer want to interact with any of you. Think of this as my final gift to my ashamed relatives. She was still sobbing and pleading when I ended the call, and I immediately blocked her number. I poured myself a drink and prepared for the storm that was about to hit. Then it started. First was my mother. Before I finally answered, she called about 5 times in a row. She immediately began her habit of guilt trips as soon as I answered. She was crying because I was destroying Amanda's future and the family because of a foolish miscommunication. I said, silly misunderstanding. She actually admitted to being embarrassed by what I do for a living. Her tuition has been covered by the same job. Mom clarified that she didn't mean it that way. You are aware of Amanda's personality. Sometimes she simply becomes preoccupied with trying to impress others. She admires you. My drink almost choked me. She was so embarrassed by me that she essentially forbade me from attending Christmas. How in the hell do I look up to that? Then Mom adopted a new strategy. Think about how this will affect her and Craig's relationship. Her career could be greatly aided by his family. You want to discuss Craig then? I cut her off. The importance of him and his family is amusing. Your own son, however, isn't even worthy of a place at the Christmas table. She began to babble about how I was taking things too personally, and that wasn't what we intended. Trying to make me feel like I'm overreacting when they're the ones being mean is a common mom tactic. It was not surprising that my father immediately adopted the angry approach when he called. He then began to lash out at me, calling me a little one for jeopardizing Amanda's education and accusing me of being vindictive and self-centered. That Father of the Year stuff, isn't it? Let me clarify. I told him that because I don't want to spend thousands of dollars on someone who is embarrassed by me, I've become a little mean and modern. Dad, make it make sense. We brought you up to be superior to this. He gave a hiss. Family helps family, I answered. Really? Did you mean that when you decided not to invite me to Christmas? Was that family encouraging? In an attempt to defend himself, he said that occasionally we had to give up something in order to improve the family's well-being, which reportedly included kissing Craig's ass in the hopes that he would advance Amanda's career. The fact that nobody expressed regret for how they handled me during any of these calls, however, truly got to me. It was all about how bad I was for standing up for myself instead. How my pride was interfering with family, and how I was being vindictive and petty. Then came the flying monkeys. My aunt called to express her disappointment with my actions. My uncle texted me to tell me to be the bigger person and man up. Even my cousin Sarah, who informed me of Amanda's deception, messaged me to suggest that perhaps I was going too far. But what do you know? None of them offered to help pay Amanda's tuition themselves. The finest aspect? Amanda actually went and told Craig what was going on, and I guess she thought he'd offer to help with the tuition instead. According to Sarah, who's still keeping me updated. Craig became very quiet and began to ask why Amanda had never mentioned having a brother. What prevented her from introducing them? Why did her brother initially cover the cost of her law school education? Why Amanda would conceal her brother's existence simply because he was a plumber was beyond Craig's comprehension. Craig discovered that his uncle, who constructed their family home, had actually spent summers working with him during high school. He had begun his career as a plumber before switching to construction. Amanda simply dug herself further when she attempted to defend her position. Craig became increasingly irate when she began discussing professional appearances in social settings, stating that he couldn't comprehend her concealing and disdaining her own brother, who had been funding her education solely for the sake of a fictitious social standing. The following day, Craig informed her that he wanted some time to consider their relationship because her behavior had shown him a negative aspect of her personality. Who knew that he had morals? My parents were continuously blowing up my phone in the meantime. Dad would alternate between swearing and threatening, and Mom would alternate between sobbing and pleading. Amanda continued to call from different numbers. I eventually shut down my phone for a few days after blocking hers. I was destroying everything by failing to simply shut up and pay like a good little ATM. However, I had left the ATM. So be it, if defending myself made me the villain in their eyes. Compared to being their doormat, it was better. Craig visited Amanda's apartment a few days later. She most likely believed he was there to make amends, but he wasn't. He ended their relationship. He claimed that he could not be with someone who would treat their own brother in such a manner, particularly if that person had given them so much support. He claimed it caused him to wonder about her morals and true identity. After losing herself in the glass, Amanda called me from yet another new number, sobbing and yelling. By now, she's owned more burner phones than a drug dealer. I had ruined everything, she said. That I was the reason Craig ended their relationship. That I was solely to blame for her life's collapse. No, sis, I said, laughing. When Craig found out who you really were, he broke up with you. I simply stopped assisting you in concealing it. She said that everyone would know what a bad brother I was, that she would report my company to the Better Business Bureau for fraud, and that I had sexually assaulted her in high school. Proceed, I informed her. Tell everyone that your brother is a monster because he paid for your education while you were trying to hide his existence and checks notes. You see how that turns out? She then resumed her pleading, sobbing as she described how she would have to drop out of law school without my help, how she would lose all of her friends, and how her life would end. I suppose you ought to have considered that before determining that I was too humiliating to admit. After answering, I disconnected. After Craig broke up with her, Amanda lost her mind. Sarah claims that she started arriving at our parents' house at random times to weep over the way her life had ended. She reportedly told all of her law school friends that her boyfriend would cover her tuition, so she was devastated when he broke up with her instead. She still hadn't decided what to do, and the tuition payment deadline was drawing near. Guess what happened when she attempted to apply for emergency loans? She left it far too late, and those take time to process. In addition, our parents' credit is in disarray, and she would require a co-signer. Why do they always try to live above their means, I wonder? 911, Sarah texted me. On Facebook, Amanda recently announced that she is going to your store to confront you about what you are doing to her. She seems to be stable. I hardly had time to alert my guys before she stormed in like a tornado, dressed in high-end clothing, her hair disheveled, mascara smeared, and ex-girlfriend energy running high. She was my sister, though. How could you harm me like this? In front of my whole staff and roughly 3 customers, she let out a scream. Your sister is me. You're supposed to take care of me. She seemed intent on making a scene, so I tried to persuade her to go outside, or at least speak quietly. My life is being ruined by you. She let out a scream. All because you hurt your sensitive feelings. You're very self-centered. One of my customers, a kind elderly woman who had worked for us for many years, got up. Is this the brother who has been funding your education, young lady? She inquired. Amanda spun around as though she had been struck. You have nothing to do with that. Well, you just made it everyone's business by storming in here shouting, the elderly woman continued. And from what I understand, you didn't invite your brother to Christmas because you felt embarrassed by his line of work. You still expect him to cover your schooling, though. In my hometown, that is referred to as biting the hand that feeds you, the expression Amanda had. She honestly didn't know how to respond when someone who wasn't related to her called out her boss. However, she bounced back quickly and started crying like a real-life dramatist. You don't comprehend, she sobbed. This is his way of punishing me. He's jealous of my success and is trying to ruin my future. I couldn't contain my laughter. What a triumph. Amanda, the accomplishment of persuading your partner to leave you. The possibility of having to leave law school. The accomplishment of looking foolish in front of my employees and clients. I am, at least, trying to establish myself. She bounded out, not spending all day playing with pipes like some people do. Perhaps sensing that she was going to ruin plumbing in front of a group of plumbers, she had to stop herself. A big guy who has worked for me since I first started the company was hacked by my senior employee, Mike, who said, "Ma'am," in a very serious tone. You ought to go now, in my opinion. Your brother's pipe playing has supported my family for the last 5 years. It covered my wife's car and the braces for my kids. It also seems to have covered your law school expenses, so perhaps show some deference. Looking around, Amanda saw that she was not getting the response she had hoped for. She had everyone looking at her like she was crazy, which she was, to tell the truth. She made another attempt. All right, I will reveal to everyone your true nature as a brother. I'll share it on all social media platforms. Proceed. I pushed. Don't forget to mention the part where you expected me to pay your tuition, but banned me from Christmas because you were ashamed of my job. I'm sure you'll feel a lot of sympathy for that. After that, she hurried away, but not before kicking a business card display off the counter and destroying our sign and clipboard. Very grown up, sis. After Amanda left, the elderly customer came up to me, stroked my arm and said, You know, my late husband was a plumber. Enrolled all 3 of our kids in college. Neither of them ever once showed shame at what he did for a living. Then my mother said, You're doing the right thing, honey. Looking me square in the eyes. Family members occasionally have to discover the hard way that respect is reciprocal. I had to sit down with my staff after that scene to explain the situation, and they were incredibly understanding. In contrast, Mike even said that the Thanksgiving drama in his family was dull. Amanda made the decision to go nuclear following the entire explosion at my company. She began phoning all of our relatives, telling them this tearful tale of her ruthless brother trying to destroy her future out of spite. The problem with family drama is this. Everyone enjoys getting involved, but nobody wants to help out in the real world. Aunt Karen was the first. That's her name indeed. She does indeed live up to it. Who made me so upset about my selfishness and obligations to my family? This is the same aunt who never paid back the $5,000 she borrowed from me 3 years ago for urgent dental work. This is how the conversation unfolded. How could you harm your sister in this way? She made a demand. She is working to better herself. Funny, I said. I can't remember you agreeing to help her pay for law school. By the way, you still owe me for your teeth. The sound has stopped. That's not the same. She sputtered. You have no right to mention it. Is it any different? I asked because, as far as I can tell, this whole family likes to talk about helping one another until it's time to do it. Then all of a sudden, there is silence. After that, she hung up on me. Those teeth hurt, but I suppose the reality hurts more. Then there was my father's brother, Uncle Steve. Despite never having any money, he is a self-proclaimed big shot who constantly brags about his investment portfolio. He attempted to lecture me about family investments when the restaurant bill arrived. Consider it an investment in the future of your sister. He informed me that she would be able to assist you once she became a successful lawyer. It made me laugh so hard. Are you able to assist me? Since I work as a plumber, she couldn't even bear to have me over for Christmas dinner. But all right. When she succeeds, tell me more about how she will assist me. He said that perhaps you could assist her in completing her education, and she would repay you. Nice idea, I said. So why don't you give her the loan? You never stop talking about your amazing investments. This is my chance to make an investment in my family. Abruptly, he had to go. The fact that this keeps happening is astounding. The nicest thing is that nobody who called to make me feel bad offered to actually assist Amanda. They all had ideas about how I should spend my money, but they all kept their wallets shut. I'm finished with her, and I'll update everyone if anything happens. The last update. I took away my sister's law school money because she had barred me from Christmas, because I'm just a plumber. Hello, everyone. Since so many people have been messaging me to ask what happened, I thought I'd post one final update. According to a mutual friend, my sister attempted to speak with Craig's parents after showing up at her ex-boyfriend's house without permission. She didn't mention hiding me because I'm a plumber, but she did tell them this whole sob story about how she was going to lose everything and needed help. The judge, Craig's father, seemed to look at her and say, "Young lady, if you're trying to be a lawyer, you should know that attempting to manipulate people by telling half-truths is not a good start to your career." Craig was clearly there and told them the whole truth. She ultimately had to leave law school because no one in her family was willing to co-sign, and she was unable to obtain private loans without one. Following the events, Grandma intervened and advised them to feel ashamed of themselves. My parents no longer sought my assistance. Amanda is currently employed by a small law firm as a paralegal. Although we all know that is unlikely, Sarah says it is only temporary until she can return to law school. My business is doing better than ever, and I've added 4 new employees and expanded to 2 more trucks. I still occasionally go out for beer with Craig and his Uncle Mike, and it turns out that when there isn't any family strife, we get along great. Around Thanksgiving, my parents made an effort to get back together, but only because they needed assistance paying their mortgage. I declined and suggested that they perhaps seek assistance from their daughter, a successful lawyer. Hold on a minute. It's funny because now that everything is public knowledge, I feel better. It's time to stop acting like the family ATM. I'm done being cautious about my work. It's just me, my profitable company, and my real friends who don't care what I do for a living. Reddit, I appreciate your support. Sometimes you need online strangers to reassure you that you're not crazy for advocating for yourself. Edit. Holy. Hello. This went viral. I'd like to thank everyone who DM'd me about needing a plumber in my area and for all the praise. I apologize. I'm attempting to stay anonymous. Second edit. To all those who claim that I destroyed my sister's life, she completed it on her own. I just stopped making the payment. I appreciate you watching. Please click the notification bell if you haven't already in order to receive updates on more startling real-life stories that are happening in your area. Story 2. My dad called me unclean and locked me in a hut, but I came back with 30 women, shackled him in a barn, and dialed 911 with a smile. My family sent women to isolation huts as soon as they started their monthly cycle. No interaction or discussion, just rice pushed through a slot twice a day. You were unclean. They said your presence would contaminate the men. I was 13 when I first entered the monthly cycle house. We only attended school 3 days a week, and our absences were always scheduled around our cycles, so no one noticed the pattern. 7 days in complete darkness with only a bucket for a toilet. The aroma alone made me puke. By day 3, I got a fever from a pain that turned out to be a UTI, which had spread to my kidneys. I begged through the slot for anything, including medication and water. My father added extra rice and told me that suffering would purify me. When they finally let me out, I could hardly walk. The hospital doctor asked why I had delayed so long to come in. "You almost died," she said. "Another day, and your kidneys would have shut down." And as I lay in the hospital bed, I resolved not to squander my one shot at freedom. So I did what any typical young girl would do. I gathered every brochure I could find. What I read was so astounding that my eyes almost sprang out of my head. It was the first time I had heard of health regulations and how seclusion without medical treatment was illegal. My family called it tradition, but the law labeled it neglect. But I couldn't just phone CPS. They would divide all of us youngsters up. I needed a different approach. I started researching online at the library. I noticed that vitamin C and parsley tea may promote early periods, and that women who live together frequently sync their cycles on their own. That's when the idea hit me. Every month I began preparing a large amount of tea. During cooking classes, I taught my cousins and sisters the recipe and showed them how to record their cycles with calendars found in recipe books. Within 6 months, I had 15 women coordinating their periods so that they occurred simultaneously. The men didn't see it coming. They now had 15 monthly cycle women, but only 6 isolation cottages. While they raced to see who got locked up first, the rest of us were free. That's when Phase 2 started. The women whose periods had been delayed by a week now had 7 days of complete freedom. They took GED classes in the community center, practiced driving in the church parking lot, and had job interviews at the mall. We grew bolder. I taught them how to use stage blood to extend their monthly cycle time. A few drops on a pad gave them an extra day. Some ladies bled for 2 weeks straight while working part-time jobs and saving money in accounts their fathers had no idea about. We hid calendars everywhere beneath toilet tanks, behind tampon boxes, and sewed into purse linings. Women's cycles are organized like military operations. We knew who would bleed when, who needed assistance with a job interview, and who had a driving test scheduled. And for 2 years it worked perfectly. Girls who had never left the house alone were getting their licenses. Women who had never touched money were amassing wealth during their unclean time. Then the water bill came. My father stared at it throughout meal, his face getting redder with each passing moment. It was 3 times our normal usage. He started his investigation immediately. We checked every pipe and faucet and knew there was a leak. It took him 3 days to figure it out. 3 days spent tracing the fragrance of boiling herbs and watching how many ladies were brewing tea at odd hours. He caught me in the kitchen at midnight, passing the recipe to my 13-year-old cousin. Calendars were arranged around the table with red lines indicating each woman's cycle. Tea bags and vitamin C tablets are put as proof. "You're making them bleed on purpose," he said gently. I rose slowly and met his gaze. Behind him, My cousin was silently memorizing the recipe. Even if he stopped me, she'd notice. They all knew. "No," I responded. "I'm making them free." The beating was swift and harsh. 1, 2, 3. I grinned the whole time because my sister was taking her driving test across town. My cousin was depositing her first check. That night when I welcomed my father home, he smiled. "Did you really think I didn't know?" he asked, pulling up an identical calendar to mine. "I've been tracking them too. Tomorrow, when all 30 bleed at once, they won't be going to the huts." He was thinking about it. They'll be going somewhere permanent. I froze, my blood turning to ice in my veins. Permanent. My mind raced through various eventualities, each worse than the last. My cousin's breathing picked up pace behind me. I grabbed her wrist beneath the table and squeezed it once. "Remain calm." Father removed a bundle of documents from his jacket, which included marriage contracts. 30 of them. Everyone has already been signed by the groom's families. My stomach churned as I recognized the names. Men from nearby communities performed similar ceremonies. Men who needed faithful wives. "But tomorrow's ceremony will resolve our minor issue," he added, spreading the contracts across the table like playing cards. "Weddings during your synchronized monthly cycle. Too weak to run, too ashamed to resist." My hands shook when I grasped the nearest contract. My name glared back at me, flanked by a man 3 times my age, a widower with 4 children looking for a new mother, a man known for his hefty hands. "You can't force us," I said, my voice cracking force. The father inquired, laughing. "You'll walk down that aisle yourselves." "See, I've been busy too." He brought out a small glass vial, clear liquid sloshed inside. "Your specialty ingredients arrived yesterday, already mixed into every batch in the storage room." My cousin's hand moved to her mouth. We had just distributed this week's tea supply to each of the women. They were probably brewing their nightly cups right now. "Sedatives." He explained enough to make you compliant, not unconscious, just cooperative. "You'll say I do," with smiles on your faces. I reached for the vial, but he easily pocketed it. His fingers grasped and twisted my wrist until I gasped. "Go to bed," he said. "Big day tomorrow." I hauled my cousin upstairs, my thoughts racing in my room. We found my 11-year-old sister, Elise, sitting on my bed, clutching something underneath her sweater. "I heard everything," she replied quietly, pulling out an outdated camcorder. The red recording light blinks repeatedly. "Found this in the attic last month. Been recording stuff." My jaw fell. Elise was a sweet, bashful kid who liked to play with dolls and draw butterflies. She fast-forwarded through the DVD showing me scenes of father on the phone, arranging weddings and meeting with a doctor about forms. The doctor's remarks made my skin crawl as he labeled them cognitively unfit. "That serious paperwork. I've been hiding under the porch during his meetings," she told me. "He talks about getting disability checks, says incompetent women can't manage money, so husbands become pays 30 women government checks." Math made me sick. It wasn't just about control anymore. It was about money. "We need to warn everyone," I said. But the moment I spoke, I understood it was too late. The house was dark. Everyone had gone to bed by dawn. They'd all hammered the tea. Elise held up the camera. "What if we upload these? The library has Wi-Fi. It's closed until morning." I paced across my room, stepping on the loose floorboards that had concealed our calendars. Think, the huts," my cousin said unexpectedly. "If we burn them, everyone will wake up. We can warn them during the chaos." This was ridiculous. It was hazardous. It was our only shot. We slowed down, avoiding the creaky third step. The matches were in the kitchen drawer, right where Mother kept them for the stove. Outside, the 6 isolation huts stood as gloomy sentinels against the tree line. Empty right now, but ready for tomorrow's victims. The initial match did not light. My hands shook terribly. The second caught fire and moved with the breeze. I pressed it on the dried grass tucked between the wooden slats. The fire started slowly and grew with great enthusiasm. The others, I snarled, as we hurried from hut to hut, burning each one. By the time we came to the sixth, the first had been devoured. Smoke billowed into the starry sky. The house erupted in shouting. Men stumbled outside in their sleepwear. Women peered through the windows in the midst of the chaos. I grabbed every woman in reach. "Don't drink the tea," I yelled over the explosion of flames. "It's drugged. Mass wedding tomorrow." Someone overheard me. Others were unduly focused on the flames. Father emerged from the smoke, his face twisted with rage. He noticed Elise filming the burning huts. "Give me that." He lunged at her. "Run!" I shoved Elise toward the road library. "Upload everything." She rushed into the darkness, her little legs beating. Father stopped her at the gate and ripped the camera from her hands. The device broke on a rock, but Elise kept sprinting. "She has already uploaded it," I said, hoping she would come to the library. Father's hand caressed my face. Stars burst in my eyes. He called me back inside the house, while the men established bucket brigades for the fires. No one called 911. That would raise questions. The basement door banged behind me, except for a short strip of light under the door. Everything was enveloped in darkness. I felt around the walls, my fingertips clutching at rough stone and dirty cobwebs. This basement had been off limits for our entire lives. Father's office was located downstairs, behind a locked door that was now slightly ajar. I pushed in, looking for a light switch. The harsh fluorescent lights revealed filing cabinets, a desk, and boxes of documents. My hands shook frantically, opening drawers, bank statements, medical records, and government communications. Each file included a woman's name. Each woman was declared mentally incompetent. Each got disability compensation, which was transferred straight to Father's private account. 2 years of payments, 30 ladies at around $1,000 each month. My stomach heaved. We were more than just property. We were income sources. A creaky board made me freeze. Footsteps above. They had contained the fires. They'd soon come for me. I slid documents into my shirt and collected what I could carry. There had to be another way out. The coal chute. Every old house had one. I found it beneath piled cartons, painted shut but not sealed. My fingernails ripped as I pried along the edges. The metal creaked and eventually gave way. Cool night air rushed in. The passage was narrow and intended for coal, not humans. I pushed through, rust flaking on my clothes, emerging breathless from behind the house. The huts continued to smolder, casting orange light across the yard. The barn, that is where Father had community gatherings, where 30 grooms would be waiting tomorrow. I needed to be there first. I sprinted through the trees, branches tearing at my clothes. The familiar walk felt strange in the darkness behind me. Cries indicated that they had discovered my escape path. Allow them to search the woods. I had a job to do. The barn loomed ahead. The doors are chained shut. But I was aware of the loose board in the back from years of hiding at parties. I squeezed through and landed on musty hay. My phone had no signal, but the flashlight worked. I scattered the stolen documents on the floor and photographed each one. Evidence of fraud, evidence of theft, evidence that would be useful to officials who were unconcerned about our traditions but worried about stolen government monies. A sound made me freeze engines. Multiple cars are approaching. It's too early to invite wedding guests. I peeked through a hole in the wall. Women walk in orderly lines, all with vacant smiles. The sedatives had worked. Behind them, men rounded up stragglers. Father led the march, regaining calm control. But something seemed strange. My relative walked too steadily. My aunt's gaze followed movement too intently. They were faking. My heart soared. The warning had spread. They crushed the tea, but stayed vigilant. 30 ladies feigned to cooperate while fully awake and waiting. The barn door swung open. Men arrived first and set up chairs. Women were the last to enter, and they were directed to a holding room in the back. I remained hidden in the loft, watching Father coordinate with evident delight. "Brothers," they said, "today we solve our women's problem permanently." That's when I saw the package beside the entrance. More tea, enough to keep them sedated for traveling. These men planned to separate us soon after the rites, dividing us across 3 states. The grooms arrived in a parade of 30 men, treating their sedated ladies like animals. One grabbed my cousin's face and examined her teeth. She stayed limp, performing her role admirably. "Begin the ceremonies," Father instructed. The first pair approached the improvised altar. I recognized the bride as one of our most formidable rebels. She swayed on her feet, letting the groom keep her upright. The officiant opened his book. That's when everything changed. The bride's gaze became focused. Her elbow hit the groom's solar plexus. He doubled over and gasped. "Now," she said. 30 females moved like coordinated combatants rather than drugged prisoners. They have practiced more than just job skills on their own time. The library offers self-defense videos, strength training, and the community center. The barn erupted in commotion. Women who had never raised their voices threw blows. Girls who had been trained to submit were fighting back. The men, struck by surprise, tripped over chairs and each other. I descended from the loft and joined the fray. We herded the men to the barn center. They fought back, but 30 determined women proved to be more than they had anticipated. The doors. I cried. My cousin and aunt were already there, attaching chains to the handles. Others placed large feed bins against the entrances. Within minutes, we'd inverted the trap with the men inside and us outside. "You can't leave us here," Father exclaimed over the woods. I pulled out my phone and finally got a signal. 3 digits. 911 emergency. Yes. "I need to report a gas leak at the old Henderson barn. I think I smell propane. Please hurry." We went to the tree line to wait. The men pounded on doors, made threats, and warned punishment. But the solid barn structure worked both ways. Sirens echoed in the distance, as is common in gas spills. Fire trucks arrived first, followed by police as support. They would have to unlock the barn and look for danger. They'd approach 30 irate men and ask questions. I placed the bogus documentation into the sheriff's truck through an open window. Allow them to locate those while investigating. Allow them to ask why 30 women's disability benefits were transferred to one man's account. The women disappeared into the bushes. We also have a plan for this. The shelter's address is revealed through songs disguised as lullabies. 3 cities away. Far enough to start over. The van keys were hidden several months ago. Money saved. Dollar for dollar. By the time they opened the barn, we had fled. 30 ladies in 6 cars, scrambling to flee. Father's empire was crumbling behind us. The fire crew found no gas leaks, but cited many concerns. The sheriff identified financial crimes that merited an inquiry. 6 months later, I unlocked the flat door with my own key. My cousin looked up from her textbooks, holding a highlighter. 2 other women sat at our kitchen table, their laptops open to online college courses. "How was work?" my cousin asked. "Good. I got promoted to shift supervisor. I hung up my name tag from my restaurant job, which paid well and gave me true independence." Elise called. "She's doing great with her foster family. Says the prosecutor wants her testimony next month." The father's trial had made local news not for the customs, but for the fraud. 30 counts of financial exploitation. 30 women with only paper-based limitations worked, studied, and thrived. "Do you think they'll all come to the shelter reunion?" my aunt asked through the doorway. She resided below with 3 other people, all of whom shared the same building. Confirmed so far. I said 2 had to work, but they're sending videos. I looked around our little flat, which had secondhand furniture, thrift store dishes, and the most beautiful home I'd ever seen because it was ours. We chose this. We've paid for it. There were no locks except those that kept danger out rather than keeping us in. Another woman in our group texted me about her first day of community college. Another successful story, another life reclaimed. The tea kettle whistled on the stove. I grinned as I poured hot water over the regular tea bags. No more calendars, no more coordinated cycles. No more using our natural cycles as weapons. We now had superior weapons, knowledge, work proof, and liberty. True, eternal legal freedom. The kind that no custom can ever take away again. I glanced at the boiling cup, remembering how different things had been just 6 months before. A knock on the flat door sent all 4 of us into a frozen state. We weren't expecting anybody through the people. I noticed a middle-aged woman dressed professionally and clutching a clipboard. My cousin moved behind me, stress radiating from her body. "Child Protective Services," the woman remarked as I gently opened the door. "We're conducting welfare checks on all the women from the Henderson compound case." My stomach dropped. CPS meant inquiries. Questions showed scrutiny. Scrutiny posed potential obstacles to our carefully planned new lifestyles. "Everything's fine here," I said, struggling to keep my voice. "We're all adults, I understand, but we need to verify your living conditions and employment status for our records." She smiled as she scanned our apartment. "May I come in?" I had no choice but to welcome her in,